For more than 40 years, if you saw a strange angular shape slipping through the night sky over Nevada, chances are you didn't see a UFO. You saw the mind of Ben Rich. He didn't just build planes, he made them disappear. Ben Rich took the legendary Skunk works from Kelly Johnson's era of speed and altitude and turned it into the birthplace of invisibility. He was the father of stealth. The man who proved that in war, the best offense is not being seen at all. And it all started with a kid from the Philippines who built his first airplane at 14. Benjamin Robert Rich was born on June 18, 1925 in Manila, Philippines, to a family of American businessmen. His early years were exotic but tough. The world was unstable, war loomed, and young Ben learned quickly that survival meant being smart, resourceful, and a little bold. When he was 14, he built a Piper Cub from scratch in his backyard. Not a model, a real airplane. He flew it. That single act told the world this kid was different. He wasn't waiting for permission. He was engineering his future. After the war, Ben came to California. He earned a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from the University of California at Berkeley in 1949, then a master's from UCLA the next year. He specialized in thermodynamics, the science of heat and motion in machines. But Ben wasn't just a theorist. He had hands-on fire. In 1950, he walked into Lockheed Aircraft Corporation as a young engineer. Most new hires fetched coffee and kept quiet. Not Ben. He dove into the problems no one else wanted. Inlet ducts for fighters. Heat management for high-speed jets. By December 1954, Clarence Kelly Johnson, the genius behind the Skunk works, noticed this sharp, optimistic engineer. Johnson summoned Ben to the secret division. The Skunk works was already legendary, the place where impossible things happened in tents and backlots. Ben started as a thermodynamicist, solving the brutal heat problems on the F-114 starfighter, then the U-2 spy plane, and later the SR-71 Blackbird. He recommended painting the Blackbird black to radiate heat better. That simple idea helped make it the fastest plane ever built. Kelly Johnson, the tough old boss, saw something in Ben, a protégé, almost a son. For 20 years, Ben worked in Kelly's shadow, learning the rules. Be quick, be quiet, be on time. But Ben had his own style. Where Kelly was brusque and dictatorial, Ben was charming, persuasive, a salesman for crazy ideas. He won over generals who hated Johnson's attitude, and in the summer of 1972, Kelly called Ben into his office. He said, "In 3 years I'm retiring. You're taking over the Skunk works." Ben was stunned. The most prestigious engineering post in aviation history was his, but only if he could keep the magic alive. Do you think the old-school tough leadership of Kelly Johnson could work today? Or do we need more of Ben Rich's charm to get things done? Let me know your thoughts. But for Ben Rich, the real test was coming. Speed and height were no longer enough. The Soviets had better radar. Missiles could reach higher. The next war would be won by the plane that no one could see. Ben was about to bet everything on a wild idea. Make the airplane invisible. In 1975, Ben Rich stepped into the biggest shoes in aviation. Kelly Johnson retired and Ben became the new boss of the Skunk works. The team was elite, but the world had changed. The Cold War raged on. Soviet radar was getting sharper. Missiles were faster and smarter. The old tricks of flying higher or faster weren't enough anymore. Enemies could see you coming from hundreds of miles away. Ben knew the future belonged to the invisible, but convincing the Pentagon was another story. Generals loved Kelly's brash genius, but they respected Ben's charm. He could sell ice to Eskimos. He needed that skill now more than ever. The breakthrough came from an unexpected place. In 1975, a Soviet scientist named Pyotr Ufimtsev published a paper on radar wave diffraction. It was dry mathematics, ignored by most. But a young Skunk Works radar expert, Dennis Overholser, read it and saw gold. He ran the numbers through their new computer program called Echo 1. The math said faceted shapes, like a diamond cut into flat panels, could scatter radar waves away from the source. The plane would look like a bird or nothing at all on enemy screens. Ben called it the Rosetta Stone of stealth. He showed Kelly. The old man scoffed at first. "That diamond shape is hopeless," he said. They nicknamed the early model the Hopeless Diamond. But Ben pushed. He bet his career on it. Ben needed money to prove the concept. Lockheed gave him $10 million from company funds. No government contract yet. That was huge risk. In 1976, DARPA finally let Lockheed compete in the Experimental Survivable Testbed program, called HAV Blue. Lockheed faced Northrop and McDonnell Douglas. The competitors had smooth curved designs. Ben's team stuck with sharp facets. They built a 7-foot model and tested it on a radar range in Palmdale. The results shocked everyone. The Hopeless Diamond had a radar cross-section smaller than a marble, smaller than the pole it sat on. Lockheed won. DARPA awarded the contract for 2 full-size demonstrators. Building HAV Blue was brutal. They had 14 months. The plane was unstable by design. Computers would have to fly it. The team worked in secrecy at Area 51, the same dry lake bed Kelly used for the U-2 and Blackbird. Engineers slept on cots. Ben was everywhere, motivating, fixing, selling the vision to skeptical Air Force officers. One crash during early tests almost killed the program, but they learned fast. The first HAV Blue flew in December 1977. It worked. Radar couldn't see it. The second prototype proved the concept again. Ben had turned theory into reality. The Air Force was hooked. But bureaucracy fought back. The Pentagon wanted changes, endless reviews. Ben hated it. He lived by Kelly's rules: minimal interference, total trust. He pushed for direct access, no red tape. When generals questioned the faceted look, Ben flew them out to see the tests. He charmed them. He sold the impossible. In November 1978, the Air Force awarded the contract for full-scale development. The program was called Senior Trend. It would become the F-117 Nighthawk. Ben's team had to build a production stealth fighter, in total secrecy. The plane looked like a flying pyramid. Pilots called it ugly. Critics said it would never fly straight. But Ben knew better. This was the game changer. Do you think today's defense projects could succeed with the same level of secrecy and minimal oversight that Ben Rich demanded? Let me know in the comments. But for Ben, the real pressure was just starting. He had to deliver the world's first operational stealth aircraft under the tightest black budget ever. The F-117 Nighthawk was born in total darkness. No official name, no public photos, no leaks. The program ran under the blackest budget in Pentagon history. Ben Rich called it Senior Trend, but to the world it simply did not exist. The Air Force gave Lockheed a contract for 5 test aircraft and 59 production versions. Total secrecy. Workers at the Skunk Works signed lifetime non-disclosure agreements. Even their families couldn't know what they were building. The plane itself looked like a geometric nightmare. Sharp angles, no curves, sawtooth edges on every surface. Pilots who saw the mock-up laughed. "It looks like a damn bat," one said. Ben just smiled. Ugly was the point. Construction started in 1978 at the Skunk Works facility in Burbank, then moved to the classified hangars at Groom Lake, Area 51. The team faced hellish problems. The faceted shape made the plane inherently unstable. Fly-by-wire computers had to correct every wobble in milliseconds. The cockpit was cramped, the ejection seat modified, the landing gear tiny. They coated the skin with radar-absorbent material so thick it added weight. Engines were buried deep to hide the hot exhaust. Every rivet was countersunk, every seam taped. One mistake could bounce radar right back to the enemy. Ben ran the program like Kelly had taught him, but with his own twist. He kept the team small, motivated, trusted. When the Air Force demanded more oversight, Ben flew the generals to the test site himself. He stood them in the radar van and showed them the F-117 disappear from the scope. "Gentlemen," he said, "this is what winning looks like." They backed off. The first flight came on June 18, 1981. Pilot Hal Farley taxied the angular black shape onto the runway at Groom Lake. The engines spooled up. The plane lifted off smoothly. It flew like a dream. The team erupted in cheers. Ben Rich had delivered the impossible again. But operational reality hit hard. The Nighthawk was fragile. It couldn't fly in rain because water messed with the radar coating. It leaked fuel on the ground like the Blackbird, only sealing when hot. Pilots called it a prima donna. Maintenance was a nightmare. The plane needed special hangars, special tools, special people. Critics inside the Air Force wanted to cancel it. Ben fought back. He flew to Washington, briefed senators in secure rooms, showed classified photos. He sold stealth the way he sold engines, with passion, facts, and just enough charm to make doubters feel stupid for doubting. In October 1983, the first operational F-117 squadron stood up at Tonopah Test Range, Nevada. Still, no one outside the black world knew it existed. Then came the Gulf War. January 1991, Operation Desert Storm. The world watched on CNN as coalition forces prepared to liberate Kuwait. On the first night, 10 Nighthawks took off from Tonopah. They crossed into Iraqi airspace undetected. They dropped laser-guided bombs on Baghdad command centers while Iraqi radar operators stared at blank screens. Not a single F-117 was lost in combat. The stealth revolution had arrived. Ben Rich watched the news from his office, cigar in hand, knowing he had changed warfare forever. Do you think the F-117's success proved once and for all that stealth is worth the insane cost and complexity? Or was it a one-time miracle? Let me know your thoughts. But for Ben Rich, the Nighthawk was only the beginning. Northrop had been working on a bigger, bolder stealth project, the B-2 Spirit. Ben saw the future. He wasn't going to let Lockheed get left behind. Ben Rich wasn't content with just the fighter. He wanted the big prize, the next generation stealth bomber. The Air Force launched the Advanced Technology Bomber program in the late 1970s. Codename Senior Ice for Northrop, Senior Peg for Lockheed. This would be the strategic bomber of the future, invisible, long-range, able to penetrate the deepest Soviet defenses. Ben saw it as the ultimate evolution of stealth. He pushed the Skunk Works team to design a sleek, faceted flying wing. Smaller than Northrop's proposal, more efficient, easier to hide. Ben listened to strategic air command generals who wanted compact power. Northrop, led by John Cashin, went big, stretching the wings for maximum range on Pentagon advice. The competition was fierce. Both teams used the same Soviet math from Ufimtsev. Both built models for radar pole tests. Lockheed's Echo 1 computer gave them an edge in predictions. Ben flew to Washington, briefed the brass, showed classified data. He argued his design was stealthier in real-world angles, cheaper to build, faster to field. Northrop played the political game better. They had deeper connections, promised more jobs, bigger contracts to keep the industry alive. Ben hated the empire building. In his book, he later wrote about Northrop's leaders as bureaucrats who covered their asses with committees. Skunk Works lived by speed and trust. The decision came down in 1981. Northrop won. The plane became the B-2 Spirit. Ben was devastated. Lockheed lost the bomber, but he refused to quit. He turned the loss into fuel. The Skunk Works needed new business or the bean counters would gut it. Ben pivoted to fighters. He championed the Advanced Tactical Fighter program. This would replace the F-15. Lockheed's entry, the YF-22. Sharp, agile, stealthy but smooth, not faceted like the Nighthawk. Ben applied lessons from the bomber fight. Better aerodynamics, internal weapons bays, supercruise capability. Development was brutal. The team worked in secrecy again. Area 51, Palmdale, endless wind tunnel tests. Ben charmed the Air Force, fought bureaucracy. In 1990, the YF-22 flew against Northrop's YF-23. Both were incredible. But on April 23, 1991, the Air Force picked Lockheed. The F-22 Raptor was born. Ben had secured the future of the Skunk Works. He won the Collier Trophy again for stealth excellence. The plane would dominate the skies for decades. But time was running out for Ben. Health issues crept in. He had led the Skunk Works for 16 years. In 1991, he retired. He wrote his memoir, Skunk Works, a personal memoir of my years at Lockheed. It became a bestseller, revealing secrets safely after declassification. He told stories of charm, fights, triumphs. He admitted the bomber loss stung, but the fighter wins made up for it. Ben Rich proved stealth wasn't a fluke. It was the future, and he built it. Do you think losing the B-2 contract was a blessing in disguise for Lockheed, forcing them to innovate in fighters instead? Or should they have fought harder politically? Let me know your thoughts. But Ben's story wasn't over yet. Retirement brought reflection and a final chapter. Ben Rich retired from the Skunk Works in 1991, but he never really left the fight. At 66, after decades of classified nights and high-stakes briefings, he stepped back. Health problems had started to slow him down. He had always been the optimist, the guy who could talk a general into funding the impossible. Now he turned that energy to writing. His memoir, simply titled Skunk Works, hit bookstores in 1994. It was raw, funny, brutally honest. He named names, told the stories that had been locked in vaults for years. Readers devoured it. The book became a classic, the Bible for anyone who wanted to understand how real innovation happens in a world drowning in paperwork. In retirement, Ben remained a legend. He gave lectures at universities, spoke at air shows, advised companies. Young engineers sought him out for advice. He always told them the same thing: don't ask permission, build it and show them. He stayed close to the Skunk Works family. When the F-22 entered service in 2005, he watched from the sidelines, proud. When the F-35 program began, he quietly consulted, reminding everyone of the lessons from the Nighthawk. Keep it simple, keep it secret, keep it fast. Ben Rich never lost his sense of wonder. He often said the hopeless diamond was his favorite project. Not because it was perfect, but because it proved the doubters wrong. He had taken a Soviet math paper, a crazy shape, and a team of rebels and turned them into the most feared aircraft ever built. Stealth changed everything. Today, every advanced fighter, every bomber, every drone owes its existence to Ben's gamble. The B-2 Spirit, the plane that beat him, still flies missions no one else can. The F-35, the most produced stealth fighter, patrols skies worldwide. Even commercial aviation borrows radar-absorbing materials and low-observable shapes. Ben died on October 5, 2005, at 80. Cancer took him after a long fight. The aviation world mourned. Tributes poured in from presidents, generals, pilots. The Smithsonian added his name to the list of giants. At his memorial, friends told stories of his charm, his laugh, the way he could diffuse a room full of angry brass with one well-timed joke. He wasn't Kelly Johnson. He didn't rule with an iron fist. He led with belief. He made people want to follow him. Today, if you stand on the flight line at Palmdale or Groom Lake, you can still feel the ghost of the Skunk Works. Angular shadows sleep through the desert night. Pilots in classified hangars work on the next generation. Hypersonic, sixth-generation fighters, unmanned systems. They all trace back to Ben Rich, the man who took a kid's backyard Piper Cub and turned it into the art of disappearing. He proved that in the deadliest game on Earth, the ultimate weapon isn't speed or power, it's invisibility. Do you think Ben Rich's charm and persuasion style is more important today than ever, with defense budgets under constant scrutiny? Or do we still need more of Kelly Johnson's tough love? Let me know your thoughts. But Ben's story ends where it began, with a boy who refused to accept that some things couldn't be built. Ben Rich didn't just build planes, he built the future of air power. From a backyard Piper Cub in Manila to the darkest hangars of Area 51, he carried the torch that Kelly Johnson lit and turned it into a beacon no enemy could see. He proved that when radar becomes the eyes of war, the smartest move isn't to outrun the enemy or outclimb him, it's to vanish. The hopeless diamond that became the F-117 Nighthawk changed history. A single squadron, 10 planes on the opening night of Desert Storm, crippled Saddam Hussein's command without a single loss. Stealth wasn't a gimmick, it was dominance. It was the reason American pilots came home alive when the odds said they shouldn't. Ben's influence stretches far beyond the Nighthawk. The F-22 Raptor, the most lethal air superiority fighter ever flown, carries his DNA. The F-35 Lightning II, now the backbone of Allied air forces around the world, uses stealth principles he helped pioneer. Even today's drones, hypersonic concepts, and sixth-generation fighters all stand on the shoulders of the Skunk Works under Ben Rich. He took a Soviet mathematical paper that no one else understood and turned it into American supremacy. In one of the greatest ironies of the Cold War, the Russians gave the world the math, and Ben gave the world the invisible sword. He was never the loudest voice in the room. Where Kelly Johnson threw generals out of his office, Ben invited them in, poured coffee, and made them feel part of the miracle. That charm, that optimism, that refusal to accept no as final, is what kept the Skunk Works alive through budget cuts, political games, and endless doubt. He protected his team the way a father protects his children. He fought for them, believed in them, and let them do the impossible. When he retired, he left behind a culture that still exists today. Small teams, big trust, zero tolerance for bureaucracy. If you ever stand beneath the F-117 on display at the National Museum of the United States Air Force, look at those sharp, ugly angles. Touch the black skin that once swallowed radar waves. Remember, it wasn't built by aliens or supercomputers. It was built by men and women who worked in secrecy under impossible deadlines because one man named Ben Rich believed it could be done. He was the kid from the Philippines who flew a homemade plane at 14, and he never stopped flying higher. Ben Rich once said, "The only thing better than a good idea is a good idea that works." His ideas didn't just work. They made the United States untouchable in the sky. The next time you see a strange shape cross the night sky, silent and unseen, remember, that's not a UFO. That's the mind of Ben Rich still watching over us. Thank you for watching this story of stealth, secrets, and unbreakable will. If Ben Rich's journey inspired you, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories of the engineers who built America's edge, and drop a comment. Which stealth aircraft do you think had the biggest impact on modern warfare? The Nighthawk, the Raptor, the Spirit, or something coming next? Let me know. Until the next mission, stay quick, stay quiet, and stay ahead.